Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of How to Do Drugs. I need to come up with something besides just saying hello because I noticed that that's what I always say, and I think it may be annoying. I don't know. I think everything I do is annoying. Today I have one of my favorite people, one of my best friends on. I'm very excited. The wonderful Mr. Mick Foley. Hello, sir.
Hello, Alia. Nice to be here. Nothing wrong with saying hello, although I need to find something. I thought of one of my idols, my mentor, Terry
Mhm.
Funk. That's Funk with an N. You
Mhm.
know, you've never heard me curse, right?
Well, a couple of times, but
Oh,
like,
live shows.
yes,
Live.
yes,
I give myself one per show, and I'm
yeah.
up to like 80, 90 minutes. So I think that's saying something. So
Nice.
Funk with an N, and he used to always begin his interviews for when he had an interview. Said, "Howdy, my simple-minded partners." So it's not for you.
I like it. Hello, my simple-minded partners. Yeah, that's actually I like it. I'm not gonna steal his stuff though, but I'll come up with something soon, I'm sure. I think some of the other podcasts that I've done, I just start talking and then that's the beginning of it. I'll be like, all right, this is how we start.
My glasses on, so we look more like twins. Okay.
Oh my goodness, I love it when we are twinsies. And this is fun. This is so fun.
I
I do
need.
that. You
Yeah.
normally don't wear glasses.
Well, I just need them when I read. Uh,
Oh,
the cheap readers you get at Walgreens, but
yeah.
I remember my wife was so happy when she saw I was having trouble with my eyes because she didn't think I was aging appropriately. Oh, I was like, "Have you seen me walk? I think I walk like an old man. Like, isn't that enough for you?" But I do throw the readers on when when I have to read.
Yeah, I have a pair of readers as well. Like I'm blind as a fucking like I don't know why they say blind as a bat. Bats can actually see quite well. I'm super blind. Like I have astigmas in both of my eyes and I actually have a pair of readers for when I wear my contacts. My doctor's like you may need a pair of readers too because glasses are fine. It's the contacts, cuz they can't get it like it's perfect or whatever. So I'm like, oh, so now I need readers with my glasses. So I'm like, I never wear my contacts.
Aaliyah, can I give you a little bit of useless wrestling trivia?
Oh my God. Oh, I'm so bad at this, but yes, go ahead.
All right. There was remember the famous Eddie Murphy skits with it was Joe Piscopo and Eddie Murphy doing doing the black and white, doing the duet with Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson.
Okay, yeah. Vaguely. I see
So
it. Yeah.
it'll come to you like is
Okay.
that you are black and I am white, and then Piscopo and Joe Frank Sinatra would come and go, "You are blind as a bat and I have sight." So that's the one actually written by Barry Blaustein, the man who directed the wrestling documentary Beyond the Mat.
Oh, there we go.
And that's a great line. You are
Yeah.
blind as a bat and I have sight. There you go.
I love your stories. Speaking of stories, all right. So this is a show about drugs, and I'm like, hey, Mick, you want to come talk about drugs on my podcast? And you're like, I don't really do drugs.
Yeah, I know. I was like, work cut out for you, Aaliyah, because yeah, I don't, and I never have.
Yeah,
So
I like even the couple of times we've gone out, like I think you may have had one drink, if that,
hey,
yeah. Like I don't think I've ever really even seen you drink or anything like that. But you did say that you tried smoking pot once, so I do want to hear.
no,
No, you've
no,
never tried smoking pot?
no, never. I mean, and I'll tell you, what's funny is that when I was in wrestling, right?
Mm-hmm.
If, for people who don't know, I was in it full time, or no, I mean, I started in '85, and it took me a
Mm-hmm.
few years to get my first job, but I've been in it since, in some sense, '85 through the present day, even though I haven't
Mm-hmm.
wrestled in years. But
Yeah.
my character at the time, Cactus Jack, and later Mankind, they were supposed to be out there mentally,
Yeah.
and the funny thing was, you work so hard to make your character believable. And that
Mm-hmm.
includes in the late '80s, early '90s, like being that character when you were out in public.
Oh,
So,
kind of like method acting
yeah,
or whatever.
oh,
Yeah.
couldn't let people in on the fact. I had a girlfriend for 6 months in Texas who did not know my real name. not only did she not know my real name, but I would have to like stop off at the side of the road and like get into character so that when I saw her, I was that same guy she met who is in character after the show at the Dallas Sports.
Look at you grifting.
That's the funny thing is the thing that made my coworkers feel like I might be crazy is that I didn't smoke pot. Like,
You're like the only one.
oh yeah, like you'd walk down the hallway and there'd be like clouds, like cumulus clouds drifting up from underneath the doors. And I remember people that, hey, you want some? It was just a given. You'd say no. I was like, no, no. And well, what? And word got around like that Foley guy's strange. Like he does. I will tell you though, I was I think it was about a year and a half ago. I was doing a show in I would say Norwich, but people who live there call it Norwich. Like
Okay, yeah. It's like Louisville and Louisville.
exactly, the closer you get to the location, the worse you pronounce it. Louisville, right? Norfolk is Norfolk. You know,
No, yeah.
Nolans instead of no, that's New Orleans. I've written 2 New York Times one bestsellers. You got it wrong. But I was in Norwich, England. I had a lot of trouble sleeping, and so a friend of mine said, "Well, you've got like 8 hours before the show." And the hotel was connected to the stadium, the football soccer stadium. And they gave me a marijuana cookie to sleep. And the next thing I know, my phone is ringing and I hear my music playing in the background. And it's Paige's mom, Paige from the WWE superstar who the movie Fighting with My Family was about. And she's like, "Where the bleep are you?" And I was like, "I'm so sorry." Sprinting, or my best version of sprinting. So I guess I was technically, if you want to say I ate an edible.
You had an edible, you got stoned and went to sleep. Well, I mean, edibles are great to help you sleep. I mean, I smoke all the time. I only do edibles, to sleep, like to help me sleep. And they make me very hungry, and they give you like that stoner where it's like you just giggly for no fucking reason.
Yes. I'll tell you what though, I mean, I just so people know, like I know about the the medical uses, and I'm trying to get my medical marijuana license here in Florida because I have sleeping problems. I've slept 4 nights in a row, which is like a record for me, is I'm usually every other night, like clockwork. Every other night I don't sleep at all, then I make up for it the next day. So it is really beneficial. And as far as like being a guy in public, who's known, especially the wrestling thing, people have some drinks and everyone's got their beer muscles. No doubt I would rather be in a crowd of
stoners
than a crowd of obnoxious drunks, like people who laugh at stuff that may or may not be funny and want to eat snack foods. That's okay. The guys who I swear I could go into, I remember going to a Yankee game this is about 15 years ago, but I stayed until the end, which I usually don't. I'm like the dad in the Goldbergs. I learned that from my dad in the traffic.
Yeah, you got to beat traffic. 7th inning, we're out.
Saw a game that went past the 7th inning because we were always hitting the road. But in this case, I stayed till the end, and I remember specifically it was like, "Foley, you rule!" I was ruling before the 1st inning, and by the 9th inning, I was the same guy, but I'd somehow gone from ruling to sucking in the course. The difference was what they had chosen to imbibe with. So I stay far away and from drunks, but I do. I have a lot of good friends, in wrestling and outside, who swear by it, and I like them when they're stoned. And I can't say the same for my who drink heavily.
Yeah, there is definitely a big difference. Even growing up, my mom had always said, she's like, "I would rather have you be like stoners than like drinkers." She's like, I would rather you be in a car with someone who was stoned than who was really drunk. And it makes a lot of sense. Stoners are very chill. We're not, we don't have like those tequila muscles or whiskey muscles, I should say. It's always like 151 rum makes me really angry and want, like, I have a couple
Really?
tickets from well, I mean, it's 151 rum. No human being should be drinking that liquor to begin with.
Proof?
Yeah, 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 yeah. And it's like it literally lights on fire. Well, you would mix it with stuff like with different shots and stuff like that. And yeah, I get real mean. An assault and battery and a disorderly conduct from
So
drinking 151 rum.
what was the story the last time I saw you where you were greeted by the police? You remember the unruly, well, let me set the scene, okay?
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, at the show.
Leah and I are doing a show together at Stand Up, right?
The stand.
The stand in New York.
Something like that.
Leah's hosting the show, and she's my roving reporter. I do about 45, 50 minutes of stories up top, and then you do the Q&A.
Mhm.
People love to ask the questions, and I love doing them because a lot of the time they hit on things that I wouldn't have thought.
Mhm.
And the big challenge when you're doing Q&A is to act excited when you're asked a question you've been asked hundreds of times.
Yeah, I'm not good at that.
That's where the acting comes in, where you have
Yeah.
to be enthused about something you've been asked.
Yeah.
But this one gentleman, he was a huge fan, but he wouldn't I answered the question, and then he wanted a follow up to something I clearly already answered. I'm like, well, I already answered that. And he was pressing like I wasn't giving him the right answer.
Mhm.
And then, so for the listeners, Alia then steps in and like very comedically pretends to lasso the mic cord around his neck, at which point he drops the C word on you.
Yeah, yeah, no, he's like, yeah. Well, I did it twice. It was funny because did it twice. I
Yeah,
remember rapping twice. It was the second time when he said the C word. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, because you're not getting the answer you want. Now you're just going to be a dick.
that's it. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then he uses that, which is not, for some
Oh,
reason,
yeah. That's when you swore. You actually swore twice at.
I, I said, yeah, hey man. And I put it up top that I only have the one F bomb, and I usually
Mhm.
curve it to the end, but it was like, I'm going to empty the tank now. And I was like, get the F out of here. And the crowd chanted, because you lose the crowd in a hurry in
Oh,
the
yeah.
US.
No, they wanted him gone
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Because he wouldn't stop. And I was going to say,
Mhm.
in the UK, the C word it's a compliment,
Oh,
it's like,
yeah, like, I mean, I normally don't mind, but it's like how it's said, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like someone like him, I'm like, "Oh," I'm like, "You're lucky I didn't actually rap you with the microphone."
but that's not the story he told the police. So they
Yeah.
all did, and they came and they questioned you, and it's like, dude, we were all there, right? It was nothing.
Oh, yeah,
Absolutely.
no, I got pictures with the officers and stuff like that. They were like, "No, this is retarded, like, this is bad, like, he shouldn't like, he's at fault here for anything, he's just being a dick." But, yeah, it was a scene. Even joking around. I wasn't was I No, I didn't get drunk till after that. Like I was being a professional. Then after that, I'm like, oh my God, I'm never gonna work in this town again. So yeah, so I do have some run-ins with the police every once in a while. That just happened to be one of those fluke kind of things. Not as even the officer said, not my fault. So that doesn't count.
Not on your record or anything like that, right?
I never what?
So it's that was not that's not part of your record. I didn't really.
No, 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 no. They didn't. I didn't get a ticket or anything. They didn't even take my name down. Well, I think they took my name down, but that was it. Like one of the cops actually started following me on Instagram and
And
stuff.
Google, the fact, right?
Yeah, probably. Well, I was real honest. I'm like, oh yeah, no, I wrapped the microphone around his neck like twice, and he was like joking or whatever. And I think the thing was like the thing that got me is because like remember I was kneeling down, like squatting or whatever, to get on his level when I was walking around doing questioning and stuff. And I had acted like I was putting my hand over his mouth. I was like, shh, and I was
Yeah,
like, shh. And then I
yeah.
accidentally, because like he had moved, and then like, because I was like the way I was sitting, like I moved a little bit, and I did accidentally touch him, and I'm like, oh, that could be seen as like an aggressive assault type thing, even though it clearly wasn't. There's cameras, they saw everything, they saw, what it was. But I was like, I even told the officers, I'm like, if anything, maybe that could be it. He's like, yeah. And I was like, okay. It was so
It was
stupid.
just crazy because it was a small crowd, but they were, I try to dig in. I try to give people a small crowd the best show that I can.
Yeah, no,
But
it
they,
was a great show. They still loved it. They like even afterwards, like people on social media and stuff, they're like, yeah, fuck that guy. It was so funny. I wonder what
but
drugs he
back to
was
the
on.
alcohol versus marijuana, if that
Mhm.
guy had been stoned as opposed to drunk,
Correct.
eh, there's no reasoning with him. My alcohol story, this is a sad story here, Leah.
Okay.
I was always the cuddly
Mhm.
drunk, and my children, they say they've never seen me drunk. I'm like, you've seen me drunk, you just don't know it because I don't act like a fool. I just
Mhm.
basically start listening to Tori Amos and get out a checkbook and start making donations, thinking I can save the world. And where they're like, oh no, Dad's got the Tori Amos on, like hide the checkbook. One New Year's Eve, I came up, I had a couple of quick sips of Sambuca, and then I came up and got in an argument with my youngest son. He was like 14 at the time, and he's very opinionated. And I was like, what? I was so disappointed because I'd never had anything but like a nice mellow time when I'd had a couple drinks. But I remember
Mhm.
really disappointing that I went up and got in a argument with my son. Like the magic is off, I guess. So that was a downer. But yeah, that's the only time I can remember where I even had, you know, raised my voice. So I've always been pretty laid back drunk.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I say that I've been hammered in whoa, probably 20 years.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, I got hammered yesterday for no reason.
Oh,
I was just at home. I had a glass of wine, and the next thing I know, the bottle is gone. And I'm like, I need to go to bed. And then I went to bed.
and that was it.
Yeah, yeah, that was it. Well, I was like editing and stuff like that. I was talking, like group chatting with a couple of friends. They were also drinking. I'm like, oh, I'll have a glass of wine. Yeah. And then I just got hammered, finished the bottle. And then I was like, oh yeah, it was like, I think it was like 1 or 2. And I'm like, I should go to bed. Let me just go to bed. It's fine. I need to get out of the apartment. I can now. I've been working a lot on like the podcast and some other stuff. So I haven't been venturing out. I'm vaccinated and stuff.
Me
And
too.
so
Second
yay.
high five, bring it up here.
Our high five, yeah. That's our move, everybody. We do high fives. All right. Being in wrestling and stuff like that, you guys put your bodies through tremendous amounts of things. Like I have seen you fall into a pile of tacks, just insane, crazy stuff. Is there a lot of like pain pill addiction in wrestling? Do a lot of people like go to that? Is it more like, or do they do like massages? Like how does that
Yeah,
work?
things are getting a lot better. One
Hmm.
of the problems when I broke in is that like the pain pills were not regulated.
Yeah.
So there were guys who would have a different doctor in every city. And because it was a prescription at that time, there was nothing, it was thought to be nothing you could do about it.
Hmm.
And then, people started passing away from these addictions. It builds up in a hurry. And the other one was the somas, the muscle relaxers.
Hmm.
And I know I've taken a muscle relaxer twice. And one of them was after my wife's mother passed away. She had a little sample bottle. She weighed about 105 pounds, and I was triple that. And I took one of those things, and I remember like saying like to my children, like, I can't drive, like I am not even in control of my body. And
Hmm.
so that was one. And there were tales of guys and great wrestlers too. And the one guy I'm talking about, one thing I'm not going to do is name names.
Yeah, obviously.
Uh, he said he was a great wrestler, and he took about 7 or 8 somas. He said, boom, we've got 20 minutes to wrestle before these kick in. And then he went out and tore the house down. And then afterwards was in that like soma shake thing.
Yeah.
I guess, for people who work out hard, to have those muscles completely relaxed is very beneficial. but it's like everything. It's like when the GHB hit the wrestling world.
Mhm.
I remember sitting there with a guy named Ivan Koloff, who's a former WWF champion and a really nice guy, and so nice, in fact, that in 1990, when I was rooming with him, I had the GHB and it starts to kick in. At that time, it was supposed to be a muscle builder and
Mhm.
fat burner. So it's not a drug, it's a supplement, right?
Mhm.
And I remember like, whoa, like Ivan said, you have to have a banana because you have to have some potassium.
Mhm.
And I remember specifically thinking, if I ever get to be a big star, I want to treat people the way he's treating me, because I'd been on the other end where I was not treated particularly good. And I didn't like that. And I
Yeah.
wanted to be a guy who treated people good. And I remember just having this great talk with Ivan Koloff, going into the bathroom, throwing up, and then having a great night's sleep. So I came home from that tour of that was like Palau and Pacific Islands. I came home with a little bottle of that stuff, and I said to my wife, "Oh my goodness, it burns fat. It makes you feel great." And she goes, "It makes you feel great?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Well, flush it down the toilet." I said, "Well, what do you if it makes you feel great, it's a drug." I was like, "No, it's a fat burner." She was like, "Go to that toilet," right? And I had to flush it down there. But
Mhm.
that was the thing. It was this thing that is supposed to make you feel good, promotes a restful night of sleep, burns fat, helps you build muscle. And so the wrestlers, instead of taking whatever, one capful, would
Mhm.
take 12 capfuls or whatever, because we're people who live large,
Yeah,
like
and you are a lot of you are very, very large men and women.
large people who
Mhm.
live larger than life. And
Mhm.
so when some people want to blame wrestling itself for fatalities, I, I think it's more a case of the people who are drawn to it are going to be those people who drive faster,
Mhm.
who live larger, who take more chances. Because if you got into wrestling just based on the risk reward ratio analysis, you wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And to be
It's
successful.
the
So
thrill seeking and
yeah,
the
def-
adrenaline.
yeah, you definitely, it's something. It's like a dream and an ambition, and you throw caution to the wind. And some people in the old days, especially when they were driving around, and it was part of the culture, and there were. I remember going to Memphis, and there were like, I remember again, no names, but
Mhm.
going over someone's house. I was like, "Oh, is it like your girlfriend?" Like, no, dude, that's a nurse. And I was like, "Why would you like?" And he's like, "They got scripts, man." And I was like, "A script? Like what? What do you mean?" I had no idea that that was like a valued thing. And today, a nurse couldn't, if she wrote a prescription, she'd be fired, right?
Oh, yeah, the way that they do it now, it's so because my mom, she was a nurse and she gave me a doctor's pad, like for prescriptions, but it was like for notes for school. Cause like I would just write my own notes for school. And she's like, if you try to write a prescription, and I'm like, I wouldn't even know how to do that. And I even told her, I think it was like, 15, 16. I'm like, I'm not into pills, mom. I'm like, that's not my thing. It's still to this day. I'm like, I'm like, ew, no. I'm like, can I buy weed with this thing? Do they have weed? Like I'm like, no, maybe some acid. Like that's what I was into. But yeah, yeah, like nurses used to be able, certain nurses, I think like the
Yeah.
level or whatever can write prescriptions.
But yeah, in those days, I'll give you a little wrestling story. I think I did write this one, and
Hmm.
I'm not naming names, but I was having a tough time with my back on a trip to it was either Austria or Germany, maybe it was both. And they had a doctor there, and I did a lot of wild stuff, wrestling wise, move wise, and there was a consequence for it. Like there was no magic trick. My feeling was, yeah, the crowd is pretty cynical, but if I do things that hurt a lot, people might think it hurts a little. Like that was
Hmm.
my mathematical formula. And I wanted to be that guy who made fans turn to their friends and go, that had to hurt. And so I had
Hmm.
this style. I absorbed a lot of impact, and there was a price to pay for that. And sometimes it wasn't just being sore. When your lower back started to go awry on me in the early '90s, and I go to see a doctor, and right away he draws up a syringe, and I was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, this is for the pain." And I spoke some German at that time, like "Nein, ich möchte nicht," whatever. And I come back into the dressing room and I go, "That doctor's a quack." And they said, "What?" I go, "I go to talk to him about my back pain," and he draws up a syringe, and within seconds there's a beeline out the door, and a line of customers. Like,
Oh
it's like,
no.
whoa.
Yeah.
I guess a one-off is not going to hurt anybody, but like I said, guys tended not to do moderation very well, and a lot of people, kind of fell under that spell of pain medication, and never came out of it.
Yeah, and it does because it affects everything, especially with all addictions and with the pill addictions, because a lot of times it is doctors who give them to you. And you're like, oh, and a lot of times you're in that frame of mind where it's like a doctor gave this to me. So and he said that it's supposed to help me, so it's okay that I do this, and then next thing you know that they are really, really addicted to it, but they don't realize that they're addicted. They're just like, no, it's my medication from my doctor. They have that whole frame of mind. And it really does a lot of times too. A lot of people, they don't even realize that they are addicted to them. They just think that like because their doctor gave them to them and it's legal. And then all of a sudden they try to get off of them. And then they're like, I'm an addict, and
Right.
it's,
In 4 years ago,
mhm.
April 2017, I had my hip replaced.
I
And
remember.
yeah, and so that's right. Yeah, you were there.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
2017, I had my knee replaced because you
Hmm.
were at my first book signing,
Hmm.
where I inexplicably broke down in tears. Remember that?
I do.
I go to start talking because it was my Santa memoir, and being
Hmm.
Santa, meant so much to me. Honestly, this is my reading material. Ready?
Is it all Christmas? Chicken soup.
For the soul. This is another chicken soup for the. This is what is it called? A
The
chicken soup for
Christmas.
the soul. The Santa Claus Chronicles. Stories to warm the heart at Christmas, and then Christmas in the Air. So this is the stuff I read, and I
Yeah.
go there I looked out at you and I could literally see you losing respect for me.
I knew it was not. Shut up. That's not true at all.
I'm surprised that no footage has ever shown up of Foley breaking down. Like, I go to talk and I got so freaking choked up. I was so emotional, that
It was a
honestly,
beautiful moment. Everyone was like, they like you like the whole room felt the same thing. It wasn't a disrespect,
it was
psycho.
pretty heavy. Hey, can I show you something?
Yeah.
Hold on a second. This was shot. I'm doing these, and not that I want to get a plug in for my
Oh
cameo.
no, no, you can plug in whatever you want. Yeah, plug away.
Cameos. I've been on almost a year,
Hmm.
so I'm doing my shows. I've got three of my own, per one man shows I've done in Kentucky, Virginia, Tennessee, and then
Hmm.
boom, here comes the pandemic. I go from one day going, "Hey, I hear about this, but don't worry, I'm going to do all my dates," and
Yeah.
then 2 later, I was like, "I'm sorry, we put the brakes on that tour in a hurry," and
Yeah.
I've got absolutely nothing to do. Like, my schedule's just wiped out, and my wife's got a pre-existing condition, so I can't come home for 2 weeks. I'm
Yeah.
just, I have nothing to do, and then along come these cameos, and I find that I'm connecting with people, even though it's on a one-to-one basis.
Hmm.
So whenever I'm asked for like life advice, newlyweds, things, I do get asked quite a bit, and I'll say, okay, this is my three piece of advice. Never get so busy that you forget to make each other feel special
Hmm.
every single day. And if you miss a day, make up for the next one. If you're a guy, this is a male thing only, I believe. If people want to say it's a sexist opinion, so be it. But I believe when you hear me out, you'll agree. A man should be willing to admit they're wrong about once a year, even though they know they're not. You know what I mean? Know your heart, you have done nothing wrong, and don't overdo it. So it's commonplace. But even when I was on swapping, whatever, celebrity wife swap,
Hmm.
and our Antonio Sabato Jr.'s fiance had a meltdown at the round table. And Antonio says to me, so I got the world's most handsome man asking me for advice. He goes, what should I do, man? I said, I think you need to go over there and apologize. He goes, but I didn't do anything wrong. I said, I know. I've been married 20 years. So now it's 30. I was like, yeah, you need to go over there and apologize. And he did. So that's number
Mhm.
two. And then the third thing I tell people is to print their photos out.
Mhm.
Like, because there's nothing like taking a stroll down memory lane. So here's the Foley photo album. So there's like some photos at Santa's Village, and they're not just thrown in there randomly. Like there's a nice
Yeah.
job, And now this is this photo. If there's one photo, it's my pride and joy, my only celebrity photo. You ready for this?
Okay. Bill Murray. I love it so much. Did I ever tell you my Bill Murray story about how he made me go away? He said that he was afraid of me and my boobs.
Break it in a way that didn't make you feel self-conscious.
Oh, no. It was at like this golf thing in Florida. It was Outback Steakhouse, like pro AM golf tour. So there was a bunch of celebrities. Mark Wahlberg was there, and I was with my buddy Scott, and he collects autographs and stuff and sells them on eBay. A lot of baseball players and stuff like that. And so I would go and help him. And he's like, for this particular one, he brought me along. He's like, Bill Murray is really hard to get autographs for, because he's like, a lot of times, like he makes like people like pay for him, especially, and donates money and stuff. So he brought me along to think that I would be able to get Bill Murray's autograph. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm actually a big fan of Bill Murray. And but this was actually when I just started porn. So this is like 2009, I want to say. And like, so I wasn't even in comedy, but I'm like, I'm like a huge Bill Murray fan. I'm like, if I get an autograph, I'm like, I want to keep the first one. Sorry, you're not going to be able to sell it. So this first one was actually for me. I was going to try to get another one, but I'm like, fuck that. Like, I love Bill Murray. I want to get this autograph. And he came in late, like he was in this little, the little golf carts and stuff like that. And he's like, you guys, I'll do autographs later, blah, blah, blah. He's like, I got to get out, on the field or whatever. And well, the golf cart, like it actually ended up getting a flat tire, which is hilarious because I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
know those things could. And he's like, okay, well, we have to wait for another cart. So he's like, oh, you guys come over or whatever. So there was a couple of people in front of me, and then I had a great picture of him from Caddyshack, where he's like on the ground face to face with the gopher. I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm like big fan. My name's Leah. Can you sign this picture? And then he literally looks at my boobs, looks at me, looks at my boobs, looks at me. He's like, you're up to something, and then doesn't sign the picture at all. And I was just like, what is happening? Like, I was so like, I was embarrassed for one, and I was just like, but my boobs are not up to like whatever. And what ended up happening is that my buddy Scott came back the next day with his friend, with our friend Bowie, and they dressed up as the Ghostbusters, and he got to party with Bill Murray and stuff like that. I was like, you know what? Fuck these and fuck my boobs. I'm over it. Boobs they're horrible. But yeah, so
You
Bill Murray wouldn't sign an autograph and picture because he was like,
say, and I'm tiptoeing carefully here, but you've always been fairly covert, right?
yeah, I mean, yeah, especially with comedy and stuff. Like I always, I was wearing a sundress, so there was like there's cleavage and stuff. So yeah, they were definitely more predominant than they normally are when I'm out in public. So it was just so funny.
That is.
And then he got to go party with him the next day. I'm like, that's fucked up. I'm like, that's yeah, but that's my life. It's like either it's like a blessing and a curse. You know what I mean? Blessing and
You want some more useless Foley documentary trivia?
obviously.
The same man who directed this is what do they call it? The five. What is the thing they used to do with Kevin Bacon?
Oh,
The
6 degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever.
1 degree. The same
Okay.
guy who directed I Am Santa Claus that I was in directed the
Hmm.
Bill Murray stories, which is a great and very uplifting documentary.
Hmm.
So when I saw Bill the second time, the cool thing about the second time we did it was that I got to see him when I went in to rehearse because I sing. It's one of the most random things. I've had the opportunity to sing with Nora Jones like five
Oh, I
different.
remember. Yeah.
And so a good friend of mine, Catherine Popper, is an amazing bass player, and she and Sasha Dobson and Nora Jones have a band called Puss in Boots. So I've been their Santa like 6 years, and I go in and I rehearse a song and I sing. I've got no vocal range, so I go. who's got a beard that's long and white, and then the women kill it. Sam's
Yeah.
got a beard that's long and white. So when I went in to rehearse, I think 3 years ago, Bill was finishing up White Christmas, and Bill's a great singer. The cool thing about seeing him is when he's on the stage, people are at first so happy just to see Bill Murray, and then they realize he's really good. Like it's kind of like a parody of a lounge singer,
Hmm.
really good, just like the Star Wars.
Yeah, but
Like,
he actually like can carry a tune.
yeah, he can carry it, and he's really good. And then Bill got to see me doing the rehearsal, and so we hit it off a little bit. And I had to ask him, I was like, Bill, have you seen the documentary? And he's like, no. And I was like, it's really good. He's like, maybe when I have the flu. But part of the secret, it's like that in the movie, the director, like he wanted to meet Bill. He wanted Bill to be part of it. And then he comes to realize, no, he's got this gift of making people feel a certain way, just showing up in strange situations, showing up at a house party and doing the dishes, playing the tambourine, showing up. Hey, a buddy of mine wants to play kickball, and people look over and it's Bill Murray. It's like even when we did the rehearsal that night, my friend Catherine was playing bass for a singer named Jesse Mallon, who's a great singer. And so she left tickets for me and Bill. And Bill ends up I don't see Bill, but the next day I see on social media people going like, Bill Murray showed up behind us at the Jesse Mallon show and asked if he could catch a cab with us, like, so he goes out of his way just to make people's day. And
Yeah.
that's really cool. I love it. So
Yeah, it's
there.
just not my day, apparently, which is fine.
Oh, sorry.
I'm over it. It was years ago. I'm fine. I'm over it. I still watch his movies. I'm still a fan. I just know that I scare him, and that makes me feel powerful. So that's
You
fine.
should. Well, you should.
So you've
We have to
also lost a lot of people. I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
we have to get back to drugs, right?
Yeah, let's get back to drugs, dude. Let's talk about drugs. No, we could talk about whatever we want. I was gonna say you've lost some people to some really close friends with drugs. How do you with losing people and being like in the position that you're in, being in the public eye and stuff like that, how did you talk to your children like about drugs? Like what was their drug talk?
Yeah, they've never been drawn to it, really. I remember one time, I don't know if I guess I did have the talks with them, but my daughter came in one night, obviously under the influence of something, dad. And I said, Noelle, have you been drinking coffee? She's like, dad. I gave up sweets for Lent and we were at Friendly, so I had 4 coffee, So that was the big drug talk. Have you been drinking coffee? My son, my oldest son, I drink once in a while, and then the 2 youngest ones never an issue at all. So I guess I don't know. I guess I don't know. Maybe I was a positive influence. They saw that I didn't need it. There were a lot of times where my wife would probably beg me to take something because I was really, really hurting for several
Yeah.
years before I had the hip and knee replaced. And then you talk about a life changer. Yeah. Yeah. But I will say this, that in 2017, when I had the hip done, I
Mhm.
go, this is at rehab. And the guy goes, yeah, how you doing on pain medicine? I said, I took a pill the first 3 days and yeah, that was it. And he said, don't think you're going to get through this knee surgery without it. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, it's going to throb so bad that if you don't take something, you won't be able to do rehabilitation.
Mhm.
And so that's where you see, okay, there is a time and a place for it. Because if it is so painful that you can't rehab your knee, then
Mhm.
you're doing yourself a disservice. And I remember the home nurse came in, and she was really feisty, and she was calling those 5 milligram, she was calling them roxycodone, the 5 milligrams. It looks like you're on a little something right now, because I had no defense to them. So
Yeah.
5 milligrams would make me all glassy. But I did not know, because I had so little experience with pain medication, about
Mhm.
the whole constipation thing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh dear God,
The
that was
worst. So
the
bad.
worst. when you start actually reasoning to yourself that you're going to reach your hand and stick it up your butt to try to like that sounded like a good idea to me. They got like that, like thing that you hold on to, like it's like yeah, you get the
Yeah,
hand
yeah.
thing, and I'm on there. And my kids realize Dad's been in there for like 90 minutes, and I'm like, I'm not through yet. There's nothing. It's
Yeah.
just, and I start thinking, can I reach up there and pull this? And then I actually go for like the glove, so at least I'm going to be
Right.
classy.
Yeah. You don't want to get in your nails.
But oh, that was awful. And I guess that's something that addicts deal with,
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of times too, like they'll cut cocaine with like baby laxatives and stuff like that, or, like the opposite. I remember after my surgery, because like there's enemas and stuff like that. Enema may have helped. Like I made what my friend who was helping, I'm like, go get me some fucking prune juice right now. It's so disgusting. But yeah, like with the pain medication and stuff like that, it was like a good couple of days. And I'm pretty regular. Like I like 2-3 times a day. Like I poop a lot because I eat a lot. I have a high metabolism. But yeah, I was like, I was eating so much. And then I had I forgot what they gave. I think it was oxys or something, like really like strong ones, but not a lot. They gave me like 6, for the first couple days. Cause I even told them, I'm like, I would prefer like the really strong like ibuprofen. Like I love like the 600 milligram ibuprofens. I'm like, anytime I'm at a hospital and like I need something, I'm like, can I get the ibuprofen over the pain pills? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it's taking those types of drugs, like you're either constantly shitting, depending on which one, or you're never shitting. And it does so many things for your body. But yeah, like I didn't like at the first like couple of days, I want to say is that like I'm like, yeah, maybe I should take them, but then they were having me switch from Advil and Tylenol, for blood clots or something like that. And I was like, yeah, no, I like these better. I ended up taking the last one just because I didn't want my friends to be like, you got any more of those? So I was like, no. I'm like, I paid for them. I'm doing all my own damn drugs.
Speaking of, you got any more of those? I remember being on a plane, and I won't say this, great wrestler who's no
Mhm.
longer with us because of his, an overdose. And this woman opens up her thing, and I hear him go, "Got any extras?" And she was like, and she gave him one. And afterwards, Terry, what kind of drug? What was that? He goes, orange. And I just kidding.
Orange one.
It's not Terry Funk. It's Terry still with us. An orange one. Like, when you're taking a pill whose origin you're not even aware of, just, but I'd never heard of rainbow stew. But, we had guys who would just take anything.
Hmm.
And it starts out, I did a chapter on this in my 2001 book. This is before they had like the national database, which now things have changed a lot because in WWE, at least, I can't speak for any other organizations, you have to list your doctor. You can't get prescribed anything from someone who's not your doctor.
Hmm.
And that does come up on the drug tests, and I don't know if guys are allowed to take them or not because I'm not a regular talent in WWE,
Yeah.
but I know they are really strict. The steroids, yeah, you can't do those.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are loopholes, but I know it's the
What
game
about
has changed.
what about like weed, especially since that's like legal now? Or like, do you know if
I don't
people are allowed to do that?
I don't know. I know that was a holdup, is that there are people who get like the designer the
This
chemical
the
weed. And
CBD or whatever, the stuff that doesn't
I,
get you high, like it like
yeah,
just like the medical.
and I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the stuff that you used to be able to get over the counter, and it was one of those, is it or is it not?
Oh,
Uh,
not sativa, something like that. I can't think of it, but I know. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They sold it over the counter for a little bit. It was like the synthetic weed, sativas.
well, I don't know what is on there and what's not, what you're
Mhm.
allowed to do. I would say, that, you know, marijuana would be a good thing with as much traveling as the guys do and settling down. And I mean, I saw a really good Real Sports, weed, weed as needed, and how much more beneficial that is than harsh pharmaceuticals. And then you're always you're gonna have big pharma chiming in because
Mhm.
if there's a perfectly natural way to deal with medication, deal with pain, then they lose out. But
Oh, yeah. I mean, they started, like, with pot and, like, ecstasy and, like, all this stuff that they're now, like, even, like, mushrooms, like, microdosing to help with, like, depression and MDMA to help with, PTSD and stuff like
yeah,
that. They're like, "Oh, no," because you don't need as much of that stuff, to get better and faster. They're like, "No, we're just" yeah, big pharma is I'm worried about, like, when like, Foley becomes legal, like, I'm still going I try to get my stuff from, like, local sources. I'm like, I'm not buying weed from Marlboro. It's just not happening. I just no.
the smile I'm giving you, I just realized, was the same smile I was giving. There were a couple guys in the early '90s talking about going home, and someone's wife had made him a big casserole,
Mhm.
and it was like he was high on cocaine and didn't have any urge whatsoever to eat. He comes home as what, and then I remember one of the guys looking at me and going, "You have no idea what we're talking about, do you?" I said, absolutely not. Like, you never tried? Nope, never tried it. Never had any idea what it was like. But it was pretty rampant. Talking about the cocaine in the '80s.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Uh, I think there was the episode of the Randy Savage episode. A&E's doing a great biography series now, where they really up their game, where it's not just the cookie cutter storytelling.
Mhm.
Like the ones they were all good, but they were all essentially cut from the same cloth. The
Yeah.
bios. So A&E's doing 8 biographies, and I'm lucky that I'm one of the 8. So it's a
Nice.
big honor,
Mhm.
and I'm hoping mine's a little cheerier than the a few of these.
Well, sometimes they always seem to, like, want to make them sadder almost, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes it's like, well, not everyone's all that sad. Like, people still want a happy ending, at least give them one happy ending.
Yeah, we'll have some, but I
Okay.
guess when they're about just people who are deceased, it's going to be
Mhm.
sad.
Yeah.
But it was Jake Roberts explaining that the schedule WWE had in the '80s, when WWE went national and international, there was no rhyme or reason. I mean, they settled into a thing. By the time I was there, it was like, okay, you fly into a general area, you rent a car, then you drive, within a 300-400 miles of the drives might be 300-400 miles, but they're manageable. And it was like, if I was somebody like to get in my car after the show, drive all night, get in at 4 or 5 a.m., and then sleep late. But in the old days, it was like 6 a.m. flight every
Mhm.
single day. And so a lot of guys just found it easier to stay out all night than
Yeah,
to
and just
try to.
stay up.
If I have an early wake up, I pretty much just stay up because I don't get to sleep before. If I have a 6 a.m. wake up, it's just so much easier for me to stay up until 3:30 and head to the airport.
Mhm.
But that whole idea, I've said that's my Achilles heel. I don't know how to sleep. I'm not good at it. I can't just
Yeah, you
lay
don't
down.
need drugs to help people to stay up.
Yeah, and that's why I have these things. I try to a couple chapters, stories to warm the heart at Christmas,
Yeah.
and so I try to do that.
Yeah, you don't need any uppers. I like uppers. That's always been my jam though, because
Oh yeah.
yeah, it has. Although like I behave, I try to behave. I have ADHD. I found that out during quarantine. It's like, oh, only took 42 years to figure why I'm crazy. It's not crazy, but I was like, oh, this all makes so much sense now. I'm like, all my parents had to do was just give me speed as a child. No, I do like I do like Adderall, but I only take it when like I really need like I have a bunch of work to do kind of and I need to like focus on stuff because like that's one of those things where it's like I already had have a problem with cocaine. Like I don't need to also be adding Adderall to that, to that mix. So it's like I use it when I really, really need to. And other times I'm just like, I'm a space case today. Sorry. It's just the way it works, because I've never been big on pills. So having to take them. I'm like, I asked my doctor, I'm like, So is Adderall better, or like maybe doing like micro bumps of cocaine throughout the day better? And because like it's a serious, I mean, because they used to give cocaine away all the time, you know, when younger, not younger, but like in the 1900s, you know, the 1900s. I can't believe I just said that. But like, you know, in the
Coca-
early like 1902 and stuff like that, yeah, like you have a toothache, give them a little bit of cocaine, you know. Freud loved this stuff, but yeah, so I asked him, like, seriously, I'm like, is it better to do that? He's like, well, not for like your nasal passage, you know, and stuff like that. He's like, they both have their pluses and minuses. And he really didn't have like a solid, like, no, you should only take this. It was kind of like, oh, well, whatever you feel more comfortable with, they both kind of help with the same thing. I'm like, thanks for being honest though. Like that's a doctor that like I would trust. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, he's not bullshitting me. He's not just trying to sell me these fucking pills. He's like, maybe a 20 sack of cocaine is better. I'm like, I love talking this stuff about you because the look on your face is always.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I know. I love it so much.
Drink coffee until I was 25.
See, I don't drink coffee at all. I hate
At all,
coffee.
huh?
Yeah, I don't like the taste of it. I don't like the smell. I like teas. I like chai tea and chai, you know, that has a bunch of caffeine. But yeah, I think maybe just because I've always like caffeine doesn't really do that much for me. I think maybe that part of my brain is broken where it's like, no, we're gonna need a little bit more, sweetheart.
Your brain talks to you that way?
My brain says a lot of things to me in a lot of ways. And it's fine. I started meditating. I've been meditating. I'm now on like 106 days in a row. I am actually very zen. I'm very zen. I've stopped panic attacks. I've noticed when I start getting impatient and flustered, which is something I've always like had to deal with. Like I started like consciously like being aware of all that stuff. And I was like, oh, I didn't need to get a degree in psychology. I just need to go hang out with fucking Buddha for a while. You know,
Now, what is your life going to change now that you're vaccinated?
no, no. I mean, I always get all my shots. That's
What
never.
are you going to be able to go out and go to eat and things of that
Oh
nature?
yeah, yeah. I was doing that before anyway because I didn't give a fuck. I mean, I did. Like, I wore masks and stuff like that. But when stuff started opening up, like, is when I started going out. It's so funny now that things are more open. I'm like, I'm also kind of waiting because, like, as people started going out, like, people are going to be gross, you know, because they haven't been out, they haven't socialized a bunch. Like, I am one of those people because, like, one of the nights I went out, I got hammered. And I'm like, oh, I'm not ready to be released out into the wild yet. Like, I need to be reacclimated into society as a human being. So, yeah, so I'm waiting until like people kind of get all that energy out, you know, and especially here in the city. Like, I guess there's been an uprise in like condom sales and stuff. And I'm like, it's a jungle out there, Mick, and I'm not going.
What do you think it'll do for live shows, like live
Oh,
comedy?
it's great. Like I have my show at the Stand on the 20th, Jawbreakers. This month I'm doing the Idaho Comedy Festival with Stand Up New York on the 20th through the 22nd. So yeah, so like towards like June and stuff, like I haven't really been like asking for spots or anything because I've been focusing on some other stuff and I've been writing a bunch because I want to try to get I've been working on a book. It's really hard for me to focus on a book, but I've been writing a book, and so I want to see if I could get that done before like I actually have to like go out and like start. Like I want to do spots and stuff like that, but I also want to like get this stuff done before I go back out. But yeah, I'm excited for stuff to be back open, so that way I can still stay inside. I'm always inside. Like unless I have spots and stuff, I like hanging out at home. I'm fun. I don't really care. Well, it was great to have you on. It's good to see your face.
Thank you, Alia. I appreciate it. Hopefully, I'll be back in the NYC area sometime soon.
Yes, yes.
And
And anytime you want to put the show together, whichever club, you know, I'm your girl for that. I can help you out. We can do it. Boop boop. Where can people find you? What do you want to promote? Your Cameo, right? You're doing the Cameo.
yeah, cameos are cameo.com / Mick Foley. Everything else from Twitter to My website is Real Mick Foley. So I do have some dates that we're rescheduling that were canceled. So in September, I've got a bunch of dates in Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, Iowa, and we might be adding some stuff. So just check me out on Twitter, Facebook. My Instagram's locked for some reason. They saw that my assistant was logging in from one part of the country and me the other, and cut me off. But Twitter's still going. Facebook's still going. I try to keep it real. So it's at Real Mick Foley, and then the cameos, cameo.com/Mick Foley. I love doing those,
Yeah.
have a squabble between the different characters I portrayed. I just did a duet about Mankind and Dude Love singing Bridge Over Troubled Waters. So I try to use myself so that other people will feel that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, going pretty good. I really appreciate the chance to come on and talk with you. Always great to see you, and hopefully I'll see you in person someday soon.
Yes. All right, everybody. Obviously, you can check out this podcast and all the major podcast platforms. Follow How to Do Drugs on Twitter and Instagram, How to Do Drugs Pod. Obviously, I am your host, Alia Janine.